Hello, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade teachers, um, and having a conversation with Principal Fox today and reviewing the grades. We came to a realization that we wanted to share with you, and that we want you guys to take a close look at and examine your own grading policy. As we know, we're wrapping up quarter 1, and we have a lot of students with very poor grades, a lot of Fs, and that is in large part to the work that the students are doing. We know that. However, we want to make sure that our grade books are set up appropriately, and that you guys get a chance to inspect your grade book before we finalize grades for quarter 1 to make sure that the students' grades are an accurate representation of what they should be and not distorted by improper gradebook setup or some of the issues that I'm going to talk about here. I'm going to try to do this in a presentation. I've never really done something like this outside of morning announcements, so bear with me if it doesn't work. But I figured it'd be a lot easier if I could show you what we had discussed versus trying to type all this up in an email. So please bear with me. First thing though, even though this is very serious, I had to have a funny joke with Principal Fox as we were looking at numbers and looking at teachers' grade books and student progress reports. This is what it reminded me of. This was Principal Fox today.
Ever just know something, Dr. Nash?
No. Yes. So that's my joke. That was Fox as we were discussing grades. So the next thing, this was shared by John LaPlante, this video on how to set up grade books, but I do want to review it with you guys real quick.
Hello, grades 4 through 12 teachers. This setup video will help you get ready for the 2021 school year. Again, this video is for teachers in grades 4 through 12. There's a separate video for grades K to 3. So please make sure you are watching the correct video, because the gradebook setup will be just a little bit different depending on those two grades. All right. Okay, so the first thing, we're going to start from our home page. If you go to For Staff and then Logins, you will want to look at Progress Book Teacher Gradebook. It's right here. So you'll want to click on that, and you'll put in your username and password, and you'll just click Sign In. I'm using another account to do this. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is update your email address. So down in the lower right-hand corner under Administration, you'll see Update Email Address. You just click on that, make sure your email address is correct here, and then click Update. It'll say your changes have been saved, and then you can close that window. All right, so that's it. So that's the first thing. Just make sure your email address is updated. Second thing is set up your assignment types. So under Average Calc Setup here, I'm going to click Set Up Assignment Types. If you are new to the district, you would type in whatever assignment types you would like to use here. I will link to a document, the 2021 Teacher Setup document, which will have a recommended set of assignment types and grading that you can use. But if you want to use your own assignment types, you can. If you're a returning teacher, you'll see your assignment types from last year. You can just click on the All here for all these classes, and then click Save. That will add those assignment types to all of your classes. So that's really all you need to do for for assignment types. Just make sure they're check boxes in each one of the classes and each assignment type that you want to use. Okay? All right. When you're done with that, you can click on Gradebook in here in the upper right. That'll take you back to this main screen. Next we'll do is set up calc methods and weights. So you can click that there. Now this one, you can choose either straight average, which means a 10-point assignment in classwork. Whoops. A 10-point assignment in classwork means exactly the same as a 10-point item in research projects, which is the same as a 10-point item in quizzes and tests. Or you can put a weight in there. For example, if I wanted to weight classwork 50%, I could put 0.5. If I wanted to do research projects, 25%, quizzes and tests, 20%, and then what does that leave me? IXL, and that leaves me 0.05. All right, so if I wanted to do that, I would then do weighted average. Oops, sorry, 0.5. We'll say 0.25, 0.2, and then 0.05. Right. So if you wanted to do weighted average, that would then weight classwork at 50%, research projects at 25%. If you wanted to copy that setup to all of your other classes, you would just click Select All. I guess I'll have to do it again. So 0.5, 0.25, that's a new feature, and then 0.05. All right. So if I wanted to add those, all those are checked, and I could just click Save. Then I'll do this Select All here again, and then click Copy. And that would copy that setup to all of my classes. And you can check that by going to one of your other classes, and you can see it's set at weighted averages. Okay, so that's your third step. So I'm going to come up here to Gradebook again. Now for our last step, we're going to set up our grading scales. So I'm going to click here on Set Up Grading Scales. This is very important. This is probably the #1 thing that teachers do wrong, is they forget to do this. So here I'm in Honors English 3, Section 10. I'm going to click Custom Setup 1, which is what you should always select for grades 4 through 12, Custom Setup 1. And I'll click Save here, and then Save Next. The default grading scale is the YT High School scale. Even if you're in middle school, it's all YT High School scale. And then I'll click Save Next. If you want to have a particular student be on a different grading scale, you can do that. I do not recommend this unless you have a very, very good reason for why you're doing it. Okay, so just leave them all at default. I'm going to click Save Next. Now I'm going to copy this setup to my other classes, so I'm just going to click Select All and then Copy. And now I've completed that copy, and I'm done. So my gradebook is now set up for the new year, and I'm ready to go. All right. So that's it. So that's it for gradebook setup. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into Clever. Clever is a portal where.
Okay, so the important thing from that video is the district recommended weights, and he has assessment at 20%, homework at 5%, classwork at 50%, projects at 20%, and participation at 5%. So let's look at one student as an example. What we noticed when reviewing some of the student grades is a lot of teachers have this set up with weights. So I think most of you watching this probably use weights. The problem with weights is if you don't have at least one of each assignment type, the assignment types you do have, so here we have assessment and classwork, they inflate to make up the entire 100% of the student's grade. So a weight of 0.2 is 20% of the student's grade, and 0.5 is 50% of the student's grade. And that only adds up to a total of 70% of that student's grade being accounted for. And because of that, what Progress Book will do is it'll inflate the assessment and the classwork to make it equal 100. So if we set up a quick proportion, we said that currently 20% was assessment out of a total of 70. Well, what would that be equivalent to if it was out of 100% of the grade? And here we cross multiply, we get 2000 is equal to 70x. Sorry, my pen's not really working here. Divide by 70 on both sides. And what we get here is about 29. And if we were to do that with this 50%, we would get 31. And so the way the teacher has it set up is right now assessments are supposed to be 20% of the grade, when in fact, because they don't have the other assignment types, the projects and the homework, it's actually accounting for 29, oh my goodness, percent of that student's grade. It's counting more than it should. And same thing with classwork. It's supposed to be 50% of their grade, but the way it's currently set up, it's actually accounting for 71%. So if a kid does poorly, if they get a 0 on something, it's hurting them more than it should. It should only be 50% of their grade. It's actually impacting them 71% of their grade. The solution to this is to make sure that you have, depending on how your gradebook is set up, and if it's the recommended district one, you've got all 5 different assignment types so that they add up to a total of 100. Additionally, another problem that we saw is in this situation here with student A, we know that the assessment assignment type is accounting for more than it should, 29%. And to compound that situation, that student only has one assignment of that type. So this one assignment is making up 29% of that student's grade. Almost 1/3 of that student's grade was this online test. So if a kid failed or did poorly on that test, I mean, here we can see they got a 56% on that test. 29% of their entire grade is a 56%. This test is hurting them more than it should. It should only hurt 20% of their grade, not 29% of their grade. Let's look at another example. So here's a classroom where we've got the same district assessment, 20%, classwork, 50%, homework, 5%, and participation, 5%. If we add all those up, 20%, 5%, 5%, sorry, this is 50%, and 5%, we only get a total of 80%. So that causes these to inflate to be more than it should. And if we set up our proportion where we said for this classwork here, right now it's 0.5, and it adds up to a total of 80. That actually ends up equaling, and I'm sorry, this stylus is terrible. I'm sorry, 50 out of 80. If I'm doing this right. Bear with me. It's been many years since my math teacher days. I got to get up my calculator. So 50 out of 80, about 63%. So it's supposed to be 50% of the grade. It's actually counting against this kid 63%. And just like we saw in example A, the issue here is there is only one classwork grade. And that one classwork grade is 63% of that student's overall grade. If they had failed this, luckily they got 8 out of 10, but if they had failed this, it's impossible. The best grade they could have gotten in that class was a 37%. If they got 100 on every other assignment and a 0 for this one, the best that they could have gotten would have been a 47% in the class, and an automatic F for one assignment. That's a tough conversation to have with the parent, and that's tough to explain. So as a teacher, I would suggest that this person one would have more than one classwork assignment at this point. You know, if you're collecting classwork every day, you should have about 40, 45 different classwork assignments. At that point, I think 50% of their grade, half their grade being made up of classwork is appropriate, because you've got 40 different classwork assignments. But if you only have one, you can't count it that much. So we need you guys to go in and inspect your weights and how you have it set up, and ask yourself, is it appropriate? Is it appropriate? Do you only have one assignment counting for half their grade? In this case, I would ask one, I mean, it's too late to create a bunch more classwork assignments. So what is an appropriate amount to have this one assignment be? 5% of the grade? 10% of the grade? What is most important in your class? What are students doing the most? That assignment type should carry the most weight. And you really should, especially for these largely weighted assignments, make sure that you've got more than one assignment under that type, so that one thing isn't counting for all of that. Because I would say that that's an inappropriate representation of grades in this student. The third and last scenario I want to look at are for the teachers who grade by points. I don't think this is very widespread. I think most people use the weights, but if you are going by points, then what that means is that you would just have to decide that an assignment that carries a lot of weight has a more total possible points to earn, and kind of the smaller assignments would have less points. So here, if we're taking a quiz, you know, I think a student getting a certain score out of 100 possible points is appropriate. But if it's just a classwork assignment, maybe that's something that should only be a total of 10 points, and the student would get 10 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, because they're not weighted differently. If you're doing it by points, you can see that there's no weight associated with the different assignment types of classwork and assessment. They don't have different assignment types associated with that. Then it's just a straight point scale. And if that's the way you have yours set up, you need to make sure that the important types of assignments, so if quizzes are more important than some sort of a classwork, those need to be more points, because what you're saying here is that all these classwork assignments are just as important as this quiz, or all of these classwork assignments are 4 times more important than this one and 5 times more important than that one, because they could only get 20 and 25 points there. So with all of that being said, does your gradebook assess students appropriately? And if it doesn't, please adjust your gradebook so that assignments are represented appropriately in students' grades. And this needs to happen before you finalize your Q1 grades, which is coming up very soon. You have until, I believe, next Thursday at midnight to finalize them. So we need to get this adjusted. One thing I can't say for certain is if you go in and you adjust the weights or the assignment types, does that screw up any of the assignments that you have? I don't know. I don't think so. My recommendation before you go in and change your gradebook setup would be to print out a hard copy or to somehow save your gradebook as it is, in some weird chance that if you change the setup, it resets your grade book. And I know that that would be terrible, especially right before we have to submit grades, but it's more important that our grades accurately represent what's important in your class and what students are doing in your class, rather than having it, a kid earning an F or a 20% in a class, when realistically, it should be something different. So what Principal Fox and I are asking, and I'm sorry the video was so long, but I couldn't type all this in an email, is look at your gradebook setup. If you have some of those scenarios that we talked about where you're missing assignment types and they're weighted, and so other assignment types are inappropriately affecting a student grade, you may need to adjust the weights that are associated with those. And then going forward for quarter 2, 3, and 4, make sure that you have at least 1 or 2 of each assignment type so that they are not disproportionate in their effects to the grades. And if you are grading by just strictly numbers or points, and there are no weights, that you make sure that assignments that are more important have more possible total points than assignments that are not as important. They should have lesser points. That's all that I got. I'm going to finish it up. If you have any questions, please reach out to me or Principal Fox, and we'll try to get this sorted out. And hopefully, some of you guys look at your grade book and that you don't have to make any adjustments, but it is important that we get this right before we finalize grades. All right. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. You guys have a good evening, and we'll talk to you later.